My golden sister stabbed me in the back to steal my project. I exposed her to management and got her fired. My name is Laura, and yes, I'm just a 28-year-old analyst, but I'm no rookie in my field, let me tell you. I work for a big company, handling those VIP clients who think that just because they're spending millions, they can treat us however they like. But no matter what anyone says, I earned my senior analyst status through sweat and stress. Every cup of coffee I've downed was hard-earned. Things were smooth sailing until my younger sister came into the picture. Her name's Megan, and yes, she was the golden child in our family. You know the type. Mom's pride, dad's joy, the one everyone in the family adores. She was practically untouchable, while I was just there. Since we were kids, Megan was the one stealing the spotlight in every family photo, showing off her accomplishments, whether it was tying her shoelaces or jumping over a puddle. My parents and the rest of the family practically worshipped her because they believed she was a real beauty with talent. Meanwhile, I was just the hard worker, as they put it. And Megan, she never missed a chance to remind me that she was the star, and I was just the supporting cast. So guess what happened a couple of months ago? This princess bursts into my company, announcing that she wants to work with me. Yes, you read that right. With my progress, my team, and yes, my project. I thought, fine, give her a chance. After all, she's my sister, and maybe working together would help us build a better relationship. But the moment she stepped into the office, I realized I had made the biggest mistake of my life. She hadn't even started working before she began undermining me like a predator hawk clipping its prey's wings. Every report, every idea, every strategy of mine faced her expert critique. I can still see her with that smug look, telling me we need to redo this, need more imagination here, or that something just sounds too basic. And she said it all as if it was her project, her personal masterpiece that would soon take the corporate world by storm. Turns out, her goal wasn't to help or even to learn. She wanted to take the project for herself. She butted into every presentation I put together, twisting each idea of mine to fit her style. It felt like she was building her career on top of mine, and she was already acting like she'd taken my job. Working on this project became, to put it lightly, brutal. I was putting in long hours like my life depended on it. Days blended into nights, and coffee was basically my second bloodstream. Every brief, every number, every chart, I handled everything personally, feeling like a superhero fighting a one-woman corporate battle. But Megan had her own tactics. She'd waltz into the office like a diva, glancing over my work with that critical look, as if I was waving a magic wand wrong. "Oh, this is so dull, Laura. Are you sure the clients will like this?" She'd sigh with that condescending tone after finally deciding to look at my presentation. Because she, of course, had a fresh perspective. Then naturally, she'd vanish as quickly as she came, like rain in a desert. Thanks for the help, Megan. Your contribution was just life-changing. But one day, I finally caught her red-handed. I walked into the office and saw Megan emailing my presentation to someone. And guess who was in the to field? Some consultant friend of hers who was supposedly helping her analyze it. Really? It would have been one thing if she had even once mentioned needing an outside opinion, but no, she did it all secretly, like it was her personal little scheme. What are you doing, Megan?" I asked, barely holding back the urge to say something I'd regret. And you know what she said? "Oh, I just wanted to check the quality of your work, make sure it's up to standard." The quality of my work. Her face was so calm, like sending someone else's ideas was the most normal corporate practice ever. After that, her advice became more like orders. She kept recommending things, which I later realized was just her trying to make her ideas the centerpiece of the project. When had she even convinced management that her brilliant insights were saving the company? She was like some Barbie doll with military training, dead set on saving the world by taking over my project. Every chance she got, Megan would talk to the boss about how she was obviously managing things better. Her favorite line? "Laura's doing her best, of course, but to really finish it off, I, as the senior member of the project, need to take full control." I couldn't believe it. This was the same sister who just yesterday couldn't tell Excel from PowerPoint, confidently claiming to be the expert. I couldn't take it anymore. Every time I saw Megan quietly stealing my ideas and wrapping management around her finger, my anger bubbled up. I decided it was time to end this charade and went to my boss. I stepped into his office, trying to stay calm and professional, like someone on a talk show, not a drama fest. But just as I opened my mouth, bam! Megan appears in the doorway, as if she'd been listening backstage, waiting for her cue. You should have seen her face. She strolled in with an expression like she'd won an Oscar and was about to share her struggles with the world. "Oh, am I the topic of conversation?" she asked with a look as if she was the night's big star. The boss froze, obviously bracing for the drama, while I tried to keep my annoyance in check as I explained that the project wasn't going as planned and needed some adjustments. But Megan wouldn't let me finish. She smoothly cut in, flipping the whole situation to make it look like I was trying to throw her under the bus. "Laura, I don't understand what you were trying to say," she declared, feigning indignation as if I'd asked her to commit fraud. "Do you think I can't handle this? Do you honestly believe I'm not up for the task?" And she looked at the boss like he was the only person who could possibly understand her. All I could do was watch her turn an ordinary meeting into a scene from a Mexican soap opera. The boss seemed lost for words, clearly taken aback by the unexpected drama. Instead of addressing the actual issue, he suggested we find common ground. Sure, because we're just that friendly, like some corporate cheerleading team. "I'm sure we can work together," Megan said with a phony smile I'd seen 100 times before. "Maybe Laura just needs to adjust to the new methods." Seriously? New methods? On my own work? I wanted to laugh, but I just gritted my teeth. It was clear I had no choice. The boss had already decided this was an ideal opportunity for sisterly collaboration, so I had no choice but to continue this circus. Meanwhile, Megan was practically glowing. She seemed to be savoring every second, as if this was her own personal show where she was the star and I was just the supporting act. Then came the day when I finally snapped. I walked into the office and felt like I'd been doused with cold water. Megan had organized a meeting with the clients and, wait for it, she presented my ideas as her own. Yep, the ideas I had slaved over were now being praised as her brilliant plan. Could she have any sense of self-respect? Apparently not. I entered the conference room, and she greeted me with a cool smile, as if this was exactly how things were supposed to be. The clients were nodding, clearly impressed, while Megan sat there looking at me like she'd already won. "Oh, Laura," she said casually, "this was essential for the success of the project. You understand, right? We needed quick decisions, and you seemed, well, busy with other things." Other things? As if I'd been sitting on a beach sipping cocktails instead of working around the clock on this project. At that moment, I felt like I could explode right then and there. But she had that ice-cold stare that seemed to say, "Go ahead, try something, and I'll destroy you." I realized I couldn't beat her alone. After that, I went straight to management. I explained what was going on, telling them that Megan was practically doing my job for me. But apparently, her words had already taken root because, to my shock, my boss smiled and said, "You know, Laura, your sister has excellent leadership skills. She's shown such initiative that we're seriously considering putting her in charge of the project." Excuse me? My job, my project, my sleepless nights in the office, and they saw her as some shining example of initiative. Of course, she had everyone eating out of the palm of her hand with her manipulative ways. Every word from my boss sounded like a nail in my professional coffin. It was clear that her goal wasn't just to hijack my project, but to steal my position entirely. Oh, she was willing to do anything to achieve that, and I knew I needed to take serious action. Evidence was the only way out. When I realized Megan was ready to not just steal the project, but yank my job out from under me, I knew it was time to take action. This was more than just a workplace issue. It was an all-out war, and I needed to plan each step carefully. I decided to play it quiet, but precise. And so, my late-night marathon for evidence began. Every night after work, I would sit down with my laptop, sifting through emails, messages, and any document I could get my hands on. A little spying never hurt anyone, right? By morning, my coworkers probably thought I was just a hardcore workaholic with bags under my eyes. If only they knew I was secretly building a case against my own sister. At first, it seemed hopeless. Megan was good at covering her tracks, like a pro. But her overconfidence eventually worked against her. I found emails where she'd been forwarding our ideas to clients and the boss under my name. You should have seen the phrases she used. The idea here is, or I thought that. Oh, she thought? Those were my ideas. Reading it, I could barely keep from laughing. Her attempts to sound professional were embarrassingly forced. It was painfully obvious she had no clue what she was talking about. Those emails were my lifeline. It was like holding a small bomb that could shatter her carefully crafted image the second I exposed her. But here's the problem. If I just barged into the boss's office and dumped the evidence, she could probably twist it around. She'd find a way to make it seem like I was a jealous sister who just couldn't handle someone else's success. As they say, it's better to wait and strike with precision than to charge in recklessly. My plan was simple. Bide my time until she slipped up on her own. I started carefully thinking about how to push her into a corner where she'd expose her own deceit, leaving no room for her to squirm out. I couldn't let her keep stealing credit for my work, so I waited, watching every move she made. The next day, I knew it was time to play my ace cards. No more waiting around for Megan to expose herself. I gathered everything I had, emails, messages, recordings, and marched straight to the boss's office. My heart was pounding like a drum before stepping into the spotlight, because I knew this was it. I wasn't just going to my boss, I was going to deliver justice. I placed the stack of evidence in front of him and pressed play on the recording. He looked at it all like he'd stumbled upon some corporate scandal. As our emails and messages flashed across the screen, his eyebrows climbed higher and his eyes widened as if he was watching a spy thriller unfold in real time. "Look here," I said, pointing to one of the emails where Megan had been sending my ideas under her name. This is how she gained clients' trust, pretending to be a super professional when in reality it's pure fraud. The boss was in shock. He sat there, staring at the documents like they were the most scandalous office revelations he'd ever seen. His face was a mix of disgust and confusion. I mean, it's not every day you find out your star employee has been riding on someone else's hard work, pretending to be a visionary. To say he was disappointed would be an understatement. "We'll handle this, Laura," he said, trying to pull himself together. "Megan will have to answer for her actions." Hearing those words felt like sweet music to my ears. At the next meeting, we were both called in, and that's when the real fireworks started. Megan walked in with her usual Hollywood smile, totally unaware that her grin would soon vanish. She was so sure she'd won. I sat next to her, holding all the evidence, ready to pull the rug out from under her. The boss opened the meeting by laying out the facts, one by one. Megan's face changed with each word. First, a bit of confusion, then pure shock. And finally, she tried to play the innocent victim. "This is all just a misunderstanding," she cried with the offended tone of someone who thought she was in the right. "Laura simply misunderstood my intentions. I only wanted to improve the project." "Oh, of course, improve it," I scoffed, showing the emails on the screen. "Just like in your messages, where you forward my ideas under your name. Great improvement technique, Megan." She turned ghostly pale. She tried to stammer out an excuse, but every time she tried, I'd counter with another email or recording. Her whole charade was crumbling right there in front of everyone. When it was over, Megan stood there like an actress after a show that ended in utter failure. No applause, no admiration, just awkward silence and judgmental stares. And you know what? I felt lighter than ever. Watching Megan get fired was, to put it mildly, a moment of pure triumph. Imagine the golden girl standing there, facing the boss with a look like she'd been doused in ice water. Panic written all over her face. She was barely holding back tears, trying to keep the last shreds of her dignity, but it was too late. Her performance was over. The boss announced that she was officially fired, right there on the spot. I nearly laughed out loud. Her fake confidence had vanished, replaced by a stunned expression as she realized just how quickly she'd lost. When she walked out of the office, she tried to give me a death glare that probably would have burned a hole in my soul if it wasn't so pathetic. My coworkers looked at her with such disdain, as if they'd just realized she was the villain of the office, not the talented up-and-comer she'd made herself out to be. She tried to put on a brave face, but it was pointless. Her reputation, the one she'd carefully built on lies, was in shambles, and everyone knew it. And in that moment, as the doors closed behind her, I finally felt free. pure, unburdened freedom. It was like a heavy weight had been lifted off my shoulders, one that Megan had been dragging me down with for years through her manipulation. She was gone, and with her went all the drama, the constant underhanded digs, the nonstop efforts to prove she was better than me in every way. I knew I'd made it through. Now, I had a new mission, to rebuild trust with the clients and regain control of my project. There was a lot of work ahead, but I felt ready. No more Megan to steal my ideas, no more risk of someone hijacking my work and passing it off as their own. This was my chance to show that the project had always relied on me, not on her inflated sense of self-importance. It's strange to think about what I went through because of my own sister, but you know what? I came out of it stronger, wiser, and a whole lot freer. No more fear that someone would swoop in to steal my ideas, my work, my life. Megan's firing was, without exaggeration, a moment of pure vindication. Picture this: the golden child standing there in front of our boss, looking like she'd been slapped with a bucket of ice water. Panic danced in her eyes as she tried and failed to hold back tears. She was barely keeping herself together, clinging to whatever scraps of dignity she had left, but it was too late. Her act had crumbled. The boss officially fired her on the spot, and I had to fight the urge to laugh out loud. Gone was her fake confidence, replaced by the shocked look of someone who just couldn't believe how quickly everything had fallen apart. As she walked out of the office, she shot me a glare that was meant to convey some sort of power or revenge. But honestly, it was pathetic. My coworkers looked at her with open disdain, the kind you'd save for someone who turned out to be the ultimate office villain instead of the talented newcomer she'd pretended to be. She tried to keep her head up, but everyone knew she'd been thoroughly exposed. The reputation she'd carefully built by trampling on my work had shattered completely in front of us all. And as the door closed behind her, I felt free. An overwhelming sense of lightness, like I'd finally shed a weight I didn't even realize had been dragging me down. All the years of manipulation, the endless needling, the constant rivalry she'd forced on me just disappeared with her. I'd finally made it through. With Megan gone, I had new priorities, repairing relationships with our clients and reclaiming full ownership of the project. Sure, there was a mountain of work ahead, but I felt ready to handle it. There would be no more Megan swooping in to hijack my ideas, to manipulate the boss, to make my work her own. This was my moment to show that the project's foundation was my effort, my late nights, my sweat and determination, not the facade she had built on my back. Looking back, it's unbelievable what I went through, all because of my own sister. But here's the thing: I came out stronger, smarter, and much freer than I'd ever been. No longer did I fear someone would come in, rip off my work, and claim it as their own. I'd overcome her power plays, reclaimed my confidence, and now, at last, I had full control over my career.